Hi, my name is Dr. Ross Hauser. Welcome to Caring Medical Florida. I'm here with Chris, who, hopefully today will be your last visit. And I just thought your story could be emulated all around the world. There are so many people with dizziness. And then sometimes people have dizziness and it's 24/7, 7 days a week. And obviously you got pretty depressed about it, right? So if you could just tell your story and kind of what led you to us, and then how has been the response?
Sure. Yeah, I was going about my day. I stood up from a chair, I turned my head to get up and felt myself stagger for about 30 seconds, thought nothing of it.
How long ago was that?
Roughly about 10 months ago
Okay.
now, last May. Now we're back in March of 2022 here. So stood up, thought nothing of it, brushed it off, took my blood pressure, checked my glucose, nothing. Same thing happened the next day. And every subsequent day after that, the amount of time that it lingered continued to progress. Where I would get to days that I would lay on the floor for 6, 8 hours a day and stare up at the ceiling, just feeling super lightheaded and super dizzy, and nothing I did could alleviate it because I didn't know what was causing it to start to avoid those movements.
So even when you were laying down, it was bad?
It would just continue to linger, right?
Okay.
And then my anxiety because of it would just shoot through the roof. And again, I was just grasping at straws, seeing people locally, had a cortisone injection done. Nothing was doing anything other than a placebo effect for maybe 24 hours. And then a movement, would cause it yet again.
Okay, and then what led you to see us here?
So I was just Googling symptoms, trying to connect the dots: lightheadedness, neck pain, lightheadedness, discomfort, lightheadedness, dizziness in correlation with neck pain, right? And I kept coming across your videos, and I kept telling my family, this is speaking to me. This is where I need to go, because I was depressed, I was upset, I couldn't work out anymore, I was having a tough time working every day, and I needed to get better.
Did you have any other symptoms that maybe you thought it was going to be neck instability? Like, did you have any clicking, popping, grinding? Did you have like light sensitivity? Did you have any other?
So the lighting was starting to throw me off. I would go into a doctor's office and all of a sudden I would get this rush of anxiety and I would feel lightheaded. I couldn't quite connect the dots, and I'd have to put sunglasses on inside to make that sensation start to kind of fade.
Yes, you did have some light sensitivity.
Yeah, and it wasn't.
Right now we're in pretty bright lights and you're good.
Yeah, now I would say after.
It's very bright lights and you're doing
I
good.
feel fine.
Okay.
Okay. This will be the 5th treatment today, and there's been kind of ebbs and flows because I had mentioned early on I didn't want to get away from exercising. I was going to try to push that a little bit, so I had a feeling it would be a little bit more than potentially anticipated. But I wanted some standard of life as I went through the process. And I would sit here and tell you I'm probably 95% better physically, and my mind is starting to catch up to the fact that my body is ready to get back to normal daily activities.
Did you, just again thinking about other symptoms, any other symptoms? Was your digestion okay? Was your swallowing okay? Sound sensitivity? Any sort of vertigo?
I'd get a little vertigo, I'd get a little ringing in the ears. It would come and go. It wasn't a consistent thing.
Okay.
My digestion had flare-ups throughout the whole process that until probably the second time down here, I didn't even correlate to my neck, right? So I would feel constipated and backed up and gassy for extended periods of time, and my diet had not changed in any capacity for years. I had bodybuilded for years, I had competed, I ate very well, and I couldn't figure it out. And then we spoke and you said, this is another potential symptom of your neck.
Here, looking in hindsight, do you have a sense it was just that you were using your cell phone and that's what got your neck unstable? Like your body really well, and you obviously are in good shape, probably even when you were bodybuilding, you were even in better shape. But what do you think ultimately led to the ligaments getting stretched out and everything?
I do think my head and my neck posture for years, consecutively, every day, all day, at a computer, on 2 cell phones. I have a little one. It's down. Everything in my life, as I started to kind of reconnect the dots, my head is down and forward and leaning, or looking at a computer screen and creeping forward towards that monitor. And as I progressed every day for that many years, it just kind of spilled over one day.
And maybe that's the message even of this video, is like, because people may not associate all these crazy symptoms, light sensitivity, continual dizziness, to their neck because they weren't in a car accident, they weren't in football where somebody hit them on the head. And the slow stretching of ligaments we call creep. That's actually the term for it, C-R-E-E-P. that ligaments are supposed to be like ropes, but over time, for hours and hours, they can stretch out like a rubber band, and then they'll stay stretched out unless you get prolotherapy. Now, prolotherapy isn't for the faint of heart, right? Like, so why don't you explain, like, your how has it been getting prolotherapy, the treatment itself, and then how's it been the recovery?
You know, I think the initial process is a little bit to take on the first time because you go through a lot, right? But you get a lot of information, and a lot of that information, if you allow the symptoms to progress, are scary things to think about. So when I looked at it, I knew that I needed to kind of take this into my own hands, right? So although it's not the most ideal amount of time I'd like to spend with needles, you know, protruding into my body, it's been the best thing for me, right? And once you get through that kind of mental stance that, okay, this is a very short period of time to get through symptoms that are taking away a standard of living, it's very much easily to kind of digest mentally for me to get through that process. And after the first one, I was a little sore, but every one after that, it's almost that my body sort of adapted to going through that process.
Okay.
And the stiffness that I kind of was anticipating has really subsided. And I might have maybe 24 hours and I'm kind of back to normal.
That's good. You know, like even today there was a patient, if you can believe it, a new patient who's actually down here for a tournament. I won't say what sport or whatever, but you know, it's a sport where you got to run and do a bunch of stuff. So then, you know, they literally they got treated today and they're actually gonna play in that sport tomorrow. So that isn't the ideal, but you could understand, like if you were a teenager and you were a soccer player, say, and your back was hurting you, like, you know, and then you got prolotherapy, which initially causes some pseudo stabilization, you know, because of the swelling. Like you could at least in your mind think like, you know, I could see where somebody in a certain scenario might actually get some prolotherapy, and then if they had a sport that they enjoyed a lot, that they could actually within a week or so get back to that sport. I'm not saying that the person's cured by any means, but it does give you like a pseudo stabilization. That's what you're feeling,
right,
like you get prolotherapy.
Yeah, the first 2 weeks after, it's almost like the instability that I initially had was gone, and then I'd have a little bit of a dip for maybe a week, and then I would feel much better for the subsequent weeks through the first couple of treatments. Now, you know, we've extended this out almost 8 weeks since my fourth treatment,
Great.
and I've had very negligible flare-ups, if any at all.
And then how would you describe your mental status when you first came to now?
I mean, candidly, I never quite understood what being depressed was, right?
Yeah.
I guess I never had a reason to be. And when I felt like I had no control and nothing to reach out for, it was a very sobering moment, right? And it was a lot to get my head around. And every day was a struggle. And, you know, every day felt like a month, right? And now, you know, I'm getting back to doing the things I should be doing, right? And enjoying that stuff. And I've pretty much 180'd with my mental state throughout that process.
So what do you see yourself doing in the next year? Like say you get, you know, 100%, like you said, you're like 90, 95%.
Yeah, I'd like to get back to doing the things I love without concern, right? And that's, you know, getting back into bodybuilding, golfing, doing the things with my son without having to worry if I move the wrong way that I'm going to have to go home and take away from his day. And that's been tough, right? And I think this has been life-changing for me. And,
awesome.
You know, I would tell you that I probably waited longer than I should have to get down here, but I'm glad I did get down here when I did, because if these would have progressed anymore, I don't know how I would have felt.
That's awesome. Appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thanks for all you've done to help my process.
Great having you.
Thanks.